High Vibe Nation is live. Welcome to the High Vibe Nation, where we have set out to raise the vibration of every human being on the planet. Your hosts on this journey are Sherry Gideons and Pamela Aubrey. So let's join them now in their current interview with a high-vibing individual.
Hello and welcome to the High Vibe Nation, the #1 positive media show focused on raising the vibe of the planet. A space for you to remember the power within you. It's a love revolution. I'm your host, Sherry Gideons, and this is my co-host, Pamela Aubrey.
Welcome, everyone. As always, such a joy to be with you and to have another amazing guest, Jodi Sternoff Cohen. She's a best-selling author, award-winning journalist, and nutritional practitioner of vibrant blue oils. She's combined her training in nutritional therapy and aromatherapy to create unique proprietary blends of organic and well-crafted essential oils. Jodi's experience with essential oils is highly personal. After losing her 12-year-old son in a car accident in August of 2018, oils were the only thing that gave her the strength and ability to sleep, function, heal, and thrive onward. Now she dedicates her expertise to help others do the same, and today Vibrant Blue Oils and Jodi's guidance draw more than 300,000 natural health seekers annually. The New York Times has recognized her as a top resource for optimizing brain health with essential oils. So welcome to the show, Jodi. Such a joy to have you.
Oh, thank you. It's nice to be here. I should clarify. I started the company in 2012, but when he died in 2018, you don't really know how well things work until you really need them.
Mm-hmm.
So true. Well, and as you know, on the show, we like to talk about being high vibe. So tell us what it means to you to be high vibe.
I think it means to be in love and out of fear, to step into personal responsibility and not be in a place of victim, blame, shame, guilt, really just to kind of live your best life with the most integrity possible.
That's beautiful. Absolutely. And I fully agree with that. And the more that I've learned about essential oils, the more that I've been able to really plug in to that greater joy, that greater enthusiasm and love in myself. So, gosh, thank you so much for that. So start us out and tell us, how did you so you said you started in 2012 with essential oils?
Yeah, it's, the wounded healer tale always has, it's like a roller coaster, right? So
Right.
My son, Max, was actually what got me into nutrition and oils in the first place. His sister was this crazy, easy kid, so I just assumed I was a good mom. And we had another one 20 months later, and he was not easy. And I was banging my head against the wall, trying to figure out, what am I doing wrong? How do I parent him? And at one point, a friend noticed that his behavior shifted after he ate something and suggested I look at nutrition. And I thought, I can do that. I've done everything else. And it turned out, certain foods were really triggering to him. And so when we took him off of certain foods, his whole personality changed. And that was life altering. And I thought, this is so bananas. I've been, spending all this time doing these parenting courses, and it's food. So I went and got a degree in nutrition and was trying to help other moms, with their wiggly kids. But the challenge with wiggly kids is getting them to sit still and assess them. So I learned this helpful technique called muscle testing that allows you to really kind of hone in on what the best remedy is. And it relies on energetics and vibration. And I got really good at it, which turned out to be super helpful when my first rock bottom hit. My former husband attempted suicide and needed to be hospitalized. And once I knew he was safe and it wasn't my job to keep him alive, my bottom fell out. My adrenals really stopped working and producing cortisol. So I could barely function, and the kids were 5 and 7, so that wasn't really an option. But I was really hanging on by a thread. I would wake up in the morning, get them ready for school, make their breakfast, pack their lunch, drive them to school, drop them off, come home, and crawl back in bed until I set the alarm to pick them up after school.
Wow.
And I had a job, work wasn't getting done. And I was trying everything. And what I didn't realize at the time was that my gut was so compromised that all of the remedies that I was ingesting really weren't being properly absorbed and assimilated. And that's why it wasn't really helping. But luckily, I had a good friend. I just helped her with a big volunteer effort. And she came over with a thank you gift of essential oils and said, these I think are really going to help you. And I said, wonderful. How do I use them? And she had seen me as a client. She said, you're really good. Why don't you just figure it out? And so I thought, okay, I can muscle test them for my adrenals. And the way muscle testing works for me is that it's almost like volume. If it's really a powerful remedy for someone, it will feel like it's a very loud volume. And the box felt very loud. And I got very excited because I really did want to feel like myself again. And I normally one remedy, maybe two presents. I got 5. And that was confusing to me until it occurred to me that I could combine them. So I got very excited. I brought the 5 in my kitchen, pulled out a shot glass because that was how novice I was, tested each bottle and figured out how many drops, combined them in my shot glass, applied them topically over my adrenals on my low back, and felt like myself super quickly, to the point where, any of the moms that are listening, I was like, oh my God, I can clean the house and go to the supermarket and do the laundry and put the laundry away. And, all those things that you don't normally face with that kind of enthusiasm.
Sure.
So I got an enormous amount done that day, and sometimes when I go to bed at night, I kind of look at the day in reverse and really try to stand into what did I do right? What did I do wrong? And I kept thinking like, wow, this was really a win. Like I did this right. But I was also struggling from insomnia at that time. And so some point between midnight and 2 a.m, it occurred to me that maybe oils could help my pineal gland release melatonin. So I went downstairs and did the same technique, made a little blend. The pineal gland is right in the middle of the brain. It's kind of eye level with the eyes and responds to light. So I didn't want to put it on my forehead, so I put it kind of around my head and was out immediately and slept really well, no nightmares. It was kind of fabulous. And I thought, okay, I did that right too. So I just kept making things up based on my knowledge of physiology. And when I started to feel like myself again, all my friends wanted to know, oh, wait, what did you do? And a lot of them were nutritional therapists. So I gave them little samples and it worked well on all of their clients. And then one of them said, this is really good. You should start a company. And at that point, I thought, oh my gosh, I'm sure someone's doing this. Like it's so obvious. So I looked it up. And I was surprised that no one was really looking at it through the lens of physiology and balancing organ systems and regions of the brain. And I was even more surprised at how complicated they made it seem, because I realized if I had started by doing research, I would have felt completely unqualified to make blends. So I had a background in journalism. I put it out there. People would find me through Dr. Google. At a certain point, I stopped filling orders out of my kitchen table and hired a friend to help me. Then I, kind of hired an assistant, and it became fairly large. And I would use the oils for my own digestion or sleep, or if my kid had a sports injury. And then the bottom really fell out. And my son was killed in a car accident. 2 of his friends also died. It was followed by really horrible legal things. My dad then passed away, then my best friend. It was not my best year. But what I realized in navigating that was that, somewhere between the stimulus and the response, there's a space. Right. And I had no control over what was happening in my external world, but I had complete control over how I chose to react. And that was an immense sense of power, because every day when I was kind of thinking of the, reflecting on the day, those moments where, my daughter was really anxious after her brother died. And if I just leaned into her and was really supportive and kind, and even if, there were a couple of times where as I was running out the door, she needed me, and I just made the decision, like, it's okay, I can be late. Like, she is the most important thing, and I'm just going to drop everything and be there and lean into it. And when you're not annoyed or distracted, it's really kind of lovely. And so it felt very empowering. And that feels like something that could benefit a lot of people right now.
Wow. I love that.
That is so amazing. And I can really relate to that in a lot of ways because, as my son was going through, especially middle school and high school, he had a lot of school anxiety. And so dealing with that on a daily basis, it can become very draining if you aren't able to lean into it. And so I think that's really a powerful way of looking at, challenge in our lives. And you're absolutely right. So many people are feeling challenged right now. And so, for those people who maybe are brand new to oils, where would you have someone begin, to start to understand how they can be of help?
Yeah, it's funny because we forget like over 50% of the pharmaceutical drugs are derived from plants or kind of modified slightly, so that they can get a trademark. But aspirin is white willow bark. Valium is valerian root. We use plants for medicine every day, and oils are just the concentrated essence of plants, highly concentrated, and so they help us shift into balance. So I feel like oils have kind of been moved into this specific category, but they're really plant medicine. And to start, it can be as simple. I have a book coming out in March about how oils can actually access the brain and also get through your skin transdermally. So I give a lot of very specific detail in there. But for people that are just thinking of trying it out, just go somewhere where they have a bunch of them and smell and pick the one you like. It's like food cravings, right? We know we crave chocolate when we need magnesium, or we crave meat when we need iron. See what your body's craving.
I love that. The neat part about that is, stepping back in what you were sharing about being more present in the moment and addressing your daughter and really coming from that space of love in yourself and that space of awareness. And I know for myself, when I was a child, I had a lot of anxiety. I wanted attention. I wanted to be loved and nurtured. And I was also very sensitive to energy. So if I felt that somebody else was not, in that space of love, or they were annoyed, I could feel it instantaneously. And as I got older and went through my own experiences, and then I had a near-death experience in 1997, and then I was fully aware of how we, are in alignment with everything. And so with the essential oils, when those started to come into my life in those moments of anxiety, I would tap into oils that had all of the joy, like, for example, joy essential oil, and I would breathe it.
Yeah.
Take those deep breaths, really take those embodying deep breaths and smell it. And then, breathe it out slowly and do it again. And just the shift alone in how my whole body reacted to that was like, boom, like that.
Well, and for the skeptics, there's research that backs that up. In fact, there is a Nobel laureate here in Seattle named Linda Buck who did a lot of research on olfactory receptors and predator odor. Mm-hmm. Your sense of smell actually has the most direct access to the brain. It goes directly to the part of the brain called the amygdala. Your other five senses are routed to the thalamus first, and that's because smell can keep you alive, right? You can smell food, you can smell water. You can smell predators like fire or animals before they attack. And so it's really kind of tied in with our survival. But what she realized is there are certain olfactory receptors that are correlated with predator odor. And then she took it a step further and thought, what would cancel that out? And it turns out it's roses. The smell of rose calms your body immediately, and that brings pure joy. It actually has the highest vibration. That was my go-to. For me, grief felt like drowning. Like I would wake up in the middle of the night and truly feel unable to breathe. I think it was because the heart pain was so intense. And so I would smell rose and put it over my heart. And it literally felt like if you've ever been kind of, you're out in the water and suddenly the waves are really intense and slightly scary. And then they just kind of calm down again. That's how I would describe my experience.
Wow.
And so when you started to sort of make this transition and realize that the oils were supporting you in that, what was that like? I mean, tell us, just a little bit about how it felt and, what that experience was for you.
It's really interesting. There's one moment that was particularly memorable. So Max passed away in August. His best friend since preschool died in October, and then the last boy died in January. And I really thought, I was so optimistic that he was going to be okay. And then my dad in January got really sick and was put on hospice. And because these other boys had passed away, there were two. My ex-husband was the driver, and there was a criminal trial, and then there was a wrongful death suit. And it was very complicated because I was the ex, and was I allowed to be with him? It was a nightmare, basically. And I wound up, someone volunteered to be my attorney who wasn't my best choice, but I didn't know that at the time. So I was with my dad, basically saying goodbye to my father. And this attorney is calling me and yelling at me. And I'm like, I can't talk right now. I'm with my dad. Like, I really need to be present. And how they sometimes, they have this way of making things black and white and demanding that you make an immediate decision. And it's very stressful. It really turns on your whole fight or flight system. And I politely hung up on him and spent some time with my dad, and then left and went home and took my dog on the longest walk ever, and just decided I am not coming back in the house until I feel like myself again. And it was the combination. I brought my oils with me, and I'll share actually my favorite way to use them. But, nature, my animal, and just very intentionally, like when you are feeling like your survival is at stake, it's known, your autonomic nervous system controls your automatic functions. So breathing, heart rate, digestion, things you don't have to consciously think about. And it's designed to keep you alive. And it has kind of two speeds, so to speak. It's got the lion is chasing you, the car is about to hit you, you have anxious, repetitive thoughts, kind of gas pedal speed, which is known as your parasympathetic branch of your nervous system. And then it's got you're safe, you can connect, you can calm down, it's safe to turn on your immune system, all these non-critical functions, and that is your parasympathetic branch. And the kind of gear shift, whatever you want to call it, between the two is your vagus nerve. It's cranial nerve number 10, and it's what is activated. It starts at the back of the head, is most accessible kind of right behind the earlobe right here, and then winds through your heart, your lungs, every organ of digestion and detoxification. And anything you can do to activate it, like with deep breathing, or probiotics in the gut, any point where it touches kind of turns it on and allows you to shift gears, so to speak, into the sympathetic nervous system. But the one thing that's really interesting, when you're in fight or flight, your eyes dilate, your pupils, the black part, get really big. And that's so you can let in more light and kind of hyper focus on the best escape route or whatever. But it also shuts down access to your problem solving and, higher levels of kind of creative thought. Because if you're in that emergency situation and you're stopping to contemplate your belly button, you could die. So you really need to kind of limit your options. Like if you have little kids, you can have the pizza or the chicken, like those are your two options. Pick one, because it just makes life easier. But it's interesting. That's what I think so many of us are stuck in. We really can't see the big picture. We're afraid. We're making decisions based on fear. So if you can literally switch gears, drop into parasympathetic, allow the pupils, the black part of your eye, to shrink up. This is a good point. If you're having a conversation with someone important in your life, make sure that their pupils are not ginormous. When the kids were little, they'd say, connect before you correct. And right. I literally watched their big, giant pupils, shrink down, and suddenly they could hear you. They were calmer. They were in a space where they got to make better choices. And so I kind of got myself into that space where I could see more choices. And all of a sudden it was clear to me, like, he was trying to push me to something that actually wasn't a good choice. I'm really glad that I calmed down. It's not just black or white. There are many options, including the option of not keeping this person who, feels the need to have critical conversations with me when I'm doing something else. So kind of realizing that it's a little bit like, Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz. She could just click her heels together at any time and go home. I had a lot more power than I realized. And once I realized that, it was a lot easier to navigate. It didn't really matter what was going on outside of me because I knew how to control myself.
Wow, everything you've shared is so powerful, because that really kind of brings us back into really understanding the power of the moment, and being able to be the observer in the moment of what's happening within yourself. And I know for myself, as I have had the deeper and deeper desire to be from this highest self, this version of me of love and unconditional understanding for others, the more that I observe who I'm being in the moment, what's happening in my system, am I anxious, am I stressed, am I angry, am I wherever I am in the moment, and then being able to really tap into that. Now, essential oils for myself, like using meditation and stuff like that, intuitively, I have begun to really tap into my inner teacher and to ask my inner teacher, what essential oil do I need today to lift my vibration? And I'm not kidding you. I will literally know, which one to go. Now, I carry tons in my medicine cabinet as well, but could you share with us, how do we begin to use the right essential oils to address the different emotions that we may be experiencing in just today alone?
Yeah, and that's a good segue to the book. That's what I really wrote about in Essential Oils to Boost the Brain and Heal the Body. Kind of how do you, I basically distilled it down to 5 steps, because what I found is that people are so overwhelmed. They've been to 17 doctors, they have all these test results, they're sure they have all these problems, and yet they're not getting any better. And I've started to realize that those problems are really data points. It's a little bit like, think of the story of the 3 little pigs, right?
Right.
The problem isn't necessarily the big bad wolf. The problem is that you don't want your house made of straw. So how do you start to build your house out of brick? It's very simple. It's 5 key things. It's activating the parasympathetic nervous system, because that's kind of the state you need to be in order to heal. It's a little bit like if the fuse box is off, flipping the light switch is going to be worthless. It's foundational. You need to be in the parasympathetic state so that blood is routed to your organs of digestion, to your organs of detoxification, so that you can actually digest, absorb, and assimilate your nutrients and eliminate your waste and turn on your immune system and turn off chronic inflammation. That is pivotal step 1. Pivotal step 2 is making sure that you're actually sleeping, because it's during sleep that your body repairs, but also your brain. When you're wide awake, you need your brain to function. It really can't do housekeeping. When you're sleeping, especially in restful sleep, there's a brain cleaning system called your glymphatic system. And I'm oversimplifying, but what happens is your brain shrinks by as much as 60%. And then this combination of glial cells, which are brain cells, and your lymphatic system kind of go through like a car wash and wash it out. And then it needs to drain down the sides of your neck and leave your body. And if we can get those 2 things alone going for people, that can get them pretty far. Step 3 is kind of the most overlooked, along with the vagus nerve. It's making sure that once you're mobilizing these toxins in the brain, that they actually leave the body. And there are a couple points where they can get really, really congested. And this is where essential oils are incredibly powerful. Essential oils really help move energy and fluid in the plant. The biggest bottleneck in the body is your neck. It's this tiny little space where all the bad things from the brain need to drain down, and where all the good things from the body, like oxygen, blood sugar, need to get up. And if there's congestion in here, imagine you're getting on an airplane seat and you're sitting in the middle, and the people on either side of you are overflowing. You're compressed, you're congested. Maybe you'll actually be able to not sit like this the whole time. But there's a lot going on in your neck. There's your lymphatic system, which drains your toxins. There's your nerves, like your vagus nerve. There's your vascular system, like blood flow. There are muscles. There's structure. If any one of those pieces is a little out of place or congested or inflamed, it kind of pushes over into the other one and compromises function. And this is where oils are incredibly magic, is helping to kind of just move stagnation so that nothing gets stuck. So that, toxins are supposed to go from the brain, from the cell to the lymph. They can get congested in the lymph, to the blood, to the liver, which is a big bottleneck, to the gallbladder, another bottleneck, gut, third bottleneck where things can actually get reabsorbed as opposed to leaving, and then the toilet. If you can use oils strategically in all of those areas, you can make sure that everything leaves so that your body has less work to do. Because if it gets reabsorbed, your poor liver just, it's kind of like being a mom.
You're right.
You just cleaned the kitchen and then your kids made cookies, and you're like,
Right.
"Oh, again." Yeah.
Oh my God. I love listening to that.
Well, and
you.
what came to me as you were saying that was that, and when I was in college, I ended up getting Epstein-Barr virus. And I was, and the reason, a big part of the reason why I got it was because I had chronic sinus infections that entire year. And so I'd been through rounds and rounds of antibiotics. And so it completely killed the biome in my gut. And so, it eventually just completely depleted my adrenals. And so if I would have had, I eventually, fortunately, was connected with a kinesiologist who was able to then kind of take me through the process of getting things up and going again. But if I had had the oils to support me along the way, it would have been a totally different ballgame, because I was kind of at a point where it was like my whole body was shutting down. Yep. And I don't know that people really understand like how important some of these things are that you're talking about.
Well, and I think, people say like, oh, there's an oil for that. I don't see it that way. I don't think there's an oil for everything. If you're having a heart attack, go to the ER. If you broke a bone, go get a cast. Oils can be used to kind of bring blood flow, to help things heal faster, and lymph flow to take out toxins. But there's oils. It's like my kids play soccer, and there are some kids that literally can play every single position. Most people can't. Usually the goalie is a really good goalie. I think oils are exceptional in certain areas, and that's what I really want to highlight. And a lot of it is preventative. It's really just, think about if you're biking and you get to a really steep hill and you're in the highest gear, it's going to be so much harder than if you just downshift into the right gear. I think oils help line your body up for success. I think they help all of the functions of the body perform better so that you can get the good things in and get the bad things out.
So how does one know which essential oil to use to address whatever they may be going through?
Well, that's why I wrote the book, honestly, and gave away all the recipes, because I just felt like people don't know, and it's hard to go wrong. It's not like you're really, I wouldn't ingest them, but I think for the most part, there's a lot that you can do right. Low-hanging fruit, lavender is good for most people and sedative. Orange is really good for calming and focus and mood. Peppermint's great for energy. All of the hot oils, clove, oregano, thyme, they're great for immune function. Be careful with the hot oils, because they can either they feel hot or they can make your skin red. They're better put on the bottom of the feet. But where I'm going with this is it's kind of like how much salt do you put on your food? There's not necessarily a one size fits all for everything. But what I tried to do is look at it through the lens of how do we get the organ systems in balance? And every organ has the same frequency. Your adrenals have the same, healthy adrenals have the same frequency across all people. It's a blueprint. So that's really where I concentrated my blends, because that felt a little bit more one size fits all.
I love that. And so for someone like me that really would have benefited from immune support, and I know this applies to a lot of people right now, what kinds of things would you recommend?
For immune support?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, well, there's a blend that everyone kind of talks about. It's called the Thieves Blend. And the backstory is that during the bubonic plague, there were thieves that were stealing the gold teeth out of the dead people's mouths. And they somehow never got sick. And when they were apprehended, they were given a plea bargain in exchange for the information on how they did not get sick. And it was these hot oils, the thyme, the oregano, the clove, and they were wearing masks. They put them in the mask and they were breathing that in. And, oils can be a very immune modulating. They can kind of, if your system is underactive, like say you're in sympathetic dominance and your immune system isn't turned on, they can help really compensate and get those like infections that are kind of brewing under the surface. If you're in hyperimmune drive, like you're autoimmune, it can also put you back in balance. What I love about plants in general and oils is that they're very balancing. They're adaptogenic. And what that means, like so many of us women have issues with our cortisol levels. And it's not a flat line through the day. You know, cortisol is the energy hormone. It's supposed to be high in the morning to give you the energy to wake up. And then as the day wears on, it's supposed to kind of go down so that you're able to fall asleep, you know, and you can spit into a little valve and test your survival levels during the day. And where most of us change, you know, so there are different adrenal remedies that can give you more energy or less energy. And sometimes it's a little tricky. It's like, wait a minute, do I need more now? Do I need less now? So those herbs that just meet you where you're at, if you're too low, they bring you up. If you're too high, they bring you down. Those are, it's easier to deal with if you're overwhelmed because you know you're not doing it wrong.
That's so interesting that you share that, because I always go back to the intuitive side of myself, and I just ask myself to show me, you know, what I need. And so with myself, when I get stressed out or I might be overwhelmed or something, I'll rub peppermint all over my neck, because the neck is the area for me that I carry a lot of stress. And it's like, once that starts, this feeling of relaxation and de-stress comes over me. And it's such a wonderful sensation.
Yeah. And, you know, here's a tip that everyone can use. So when you're having those high anxiety, panic attack moments, and we have two different hemispheres of the brain, right? The left and the right, and they do different things. And sometimes one is more dominant than the other. And functional neurologists kind of work with balancing the different hemispheres. And they work a lot with oils, because the fastest way to get anything into the brain is by smelling it. And especially if you're trying to get something into the frontal lobe, the prefrontal cortex, which is really our decision-making area. So if you're feeling anxious, my friend Titus Chu taught me this, it's your right frontal lobe that is overactive. So what you want to do is stimulate the left frontal lobe. It puts the two hemispheres in balance and you feel better. So the easiest way to do that, and this works with any oil, so whatever you're drawn to, you just can plug your right nostril and smell through the left. And it just kind of, you know, within 5 breaths, you're usually feeling more balanced, less anxious. I used to have panic attacks after Max died, especially bizarrely in the supermarket. It was so weird because, you know, you're shopping and it takes all this time to go through the aisles and get what you want. And then in the line, I could feel like my heart was like going to explode out of my chest. I would get so hot. And there were times when I would literally have to abandon the cart and just leave because it was just too much, which wasn't very efficient. So I started bringing my oil with me and doing that in line. And it's funny because the people behind me are like, what are you doing? Once I tell them, I like sold more oil in the supermarket line, you know, just randomly. But I can tell you, I can attest to the fact that it helps.
Wow. So when you first kind of got into this from the scientific standpoint, were you surprised at some of the information that started coming out?
Well, you know, it's interesting, Sherry. You keep talking about, I get downloads too. Like especially when I'm in nature, I get very clear downloads. And I was writing my first book, and we happened to be in Maui, where I get the best downloads. So I would get up at like 6 and write, and then my kids would get up, and I'd like feed them, and you get them down to the pool, and then I'd go for a run. And something would come in, like the whole transdermal experience, you know, and how oils are actually getting into the system through the skin. I got some really interesting downloads, and I was like, is that right? Can that be right? And then I would go and research, you know, and I would find all this research. I was always validated. So that's usually my system is I get the download first, and then I go online and research and back it up.
Mm-hmm. Well, when I was doing my research on vibrant blue oils, one of the things that I really noticed was how they're really different and formulated based on any other essential oils that I've seen on the market. Because I've, you know, used a lot of, you know, doTERRA and Young Living and all of that. And one of the things when I started to research yours, which is vibrant blue oils, I noticed that yours are very formulated towards the adrenals and the parasympathetic. Like, I noticed you were saying, okay, I saw the diagram of the human body and how you were saying address the certain areas with this specific oil. And I was like, wow, that is so powerful, because I don't see any other ones that are formulated like that. How are yours so different?
You know, it's so funny. I didn't even know about all the players in the essential oil space at all. I just, because I had been working, especially with kids, kids can be tricky. You can, that Jessica Seinfeld book where you can hide the vegetables in your food, or I'd make kale a million ways. It was really, really hard to get healthy food into my kids, but they never once said, like, no, Mom, don't rub my feet with oils. And I realized, oh my goodness, like, this is the easiest thing for kids. But I also realized, it's really hard, and especially like they can't swallow supplements. So it's always been clear to me. Like, I was always, I think we're all empaths and psychic in ways that sometimes, like, we'll know when the phone rings who it's going to be, or we're about to turn a corner in our car and we'll somehow know that we should slow down because we could hit someone. We're not super comfortable with our sixth sense, so we kind of cancel it out. But it was always clear to me that the different organ systems had their own frequency, their own vibration, their own blueprint. And I could always see when I was balancing people, when I was kind of, what remedies helped to return it to balance. That was always my low-hanging fruit. And I always looked at it as the organ systems are the building blocks, like blood sugar, it's your adrenals and your pancreas and your liver. Detox, it's your liver, your gallbladder, your lymph, your kidneys. If you can balance the underlying organ systems, then everything else flows smoothly. So I knew that already. So when I realized that oils were able to access your system and bypass digestion, I was like, oh, maybe I can use these for kind of all those hard to reach places in your practice. And I've been practicing long enough that I knew it's really hard to shift people into parasympathetic. It's really hard to trigger the pineal gland. It's really hard to reboot the hypothalamus. Like, I already had kind of my wish list of, I wish there was a remedy for that. So that's really how I approached it. I wasn't really thinking of, it didn't even occur to me. I didn't actually even learn about the other companies until later. But it always, I'm not one to reinvent the wheel. So I kind of noticed, a lot of people are selling single oils. I don't need to do that. Like, that's well served. They got that. I'm going to do, the blends that make sense to how I see healing the body.
Love that.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so what are some of your favorite success stories so far?
I have one woman who, sweetest girl ever. She was celiac until the day after her wedding. She got married in a wheat field. And on her honeymoon, she basically had a digestive crisis and couldn't leave the hotel. And then kind of weaned out things from her diet. I think she was doing the GAPS diet and the elimination diet. She was down to like 4 foods, and it wasn't really sustainable. And her husband was not particularly happy with the situation. And it was similar to my issue. She just couldn't assimilate the nutrients because her digestion was so compromised. So we supported her with parasympathetic to help get her in the parasympathetic state. And then we have 2 other blends, one that's good for anti-inflammation and one that's good for intestinal mucosa. And she just would topically apply those. And she was juicing at the time. And she was so cute. After like 2 weeks, she's like, oh my God, I can eat. I'm starting to add food back in. Like, I'm starting to heal. So, if your health is perfect and you're great and you just want to, add oils to your bath, that's super cool. If you're in a state where nothing else has helped, being able to bypass digestion is a really powerful option.
Yeah, that's incredible.
It's so interesting too, because I'm working with a brain study doctor. And one of the things I was reading online on your site was about the different brain studies that you've done. Can you tell us a little bit about that around using your essential oils with just different brain case studies?
Yeah, well, the most interesting thing is that, so many of us have compromised brain. And a part of that is toxicity. Like, do you know what rat poisoning is? It's vitamin D.
Really?
Poisons are things you can't detoxify. Do you know what humans can't detoxify?
What?
Metal. And guess what?
Wow.
It's in our food. Fluoride is a metal. It's in our water. Chemtrails are spraying nanoparticles of aluminum in the air. They're injecting us with it. Like, basically, the biggest problem with the brain is that we have all these metals in there that then block the signals. And the problem is detoxifying the brain because of 2 things. Detoxifying is both a chemical and a physical issue. So the chemical is the hormone the sleep hormone melatonin that basically allows your brain to go to sleep so that it can shrink. And then the second part is the glymphatic system, the lymph flow. But so often there's congestion in the neck. So I didn't do the study, but one of my friends, Dr. Mark Ruggiero, with my friend Dr. Christine Schaffner, they were doing ultrasounds of the neck, and they were finding that the lymph and the vagus nerve were both congested. And so they started testing using essential oils to both activate the vagus nerve and kind of detoxify the lymph. And then they would do another ultrasound. Well, first of all, they would see the client start to make improvements because that was the bottleneck. But they'd notice, the size changed, the inflammation changed. So that's the kind of stuff we're doing, is just helping people to basically put things in alignment. Like my kids used to like to make those marble, what do they call it? Like the marble ramps.
Yeah.
And it's pretty funny. It has to be pretty exact, right? Because if it's
Exactly.
a little bit off, the marble doesn't go.
Right.
And that's a little bit how I think of the body, and detoxifying. It's like a marble ramp. If there's any kind of lack of alignment, it doesn't go as well. So we're just really trying to help people return to their own sense of balance and homeostasis so that the body can really do what it's supposed to do.
Wow. The thing that I think of when you talk about detoxifying too, especially in relation to metals, is a lot of my family members have done chelation in the past. And, had they known, I'm sure that, they could utilize essential oils, they would have. That would have been really powerful. But I'm just curious, what other ways can we support our body just every day? For the smallest thing, say it is a sinus infection, or, maybe it's headaches.
Yeah, binders, which are not essential oils. So the biggest problem is you get the toxins all the way almost to the finish line. They're in the gut. They're about to make it to the toilet, and then they get reabsorbed. So binders are like magnets. They literally attract the toxin and make sure that it's carried out of the body. There's a company in Idaho, Cellcore, that I think makes great ones. They've got an HMET, heavy metal environmental toxin, that's great because it actually detoxifies glyphosate, which is hard to get out of the system. And then the other thing is really just making sure, like your vascular system is flowing. The good things are getting in, the bad things are getting out. Cypress is a really great oil for circulation, especially now with COVID. It can be a little hot, so dilute it, but you can put that over your lungs. One fun fact with lymph, it doesn't drain evenly. It drains more on the left side. So anything you can do kind of on your left neck, your left clavicle, that just helps to kind of open up, think about traffic if 3 of the 4 lanes are closed. If you can open those 3 other lanes, everything flows a lot faster.
Wow. So tell us a little bit more about your new book. Tell us the name of it, and really what are we going to discover in it?
Yeah, I'm super excited. It's coming out with Random House on March 16th. It's called Essential Oils to Boost the Brain and Heal the Body. And it's funny because it's packaged as a gift book, so it's really pretty. They were thinking before COVID hit, because there's such a lead time in creating books, that it would go into gift stores. So it's got a lot of really gorgeous, really compelling pictures. And it's 2 parts. The first part, I've noticed that compliance is a lot higher when people understand why I'm telling them to do certain things. Once they understand, oh, this is turning on my ability to heal, they're much better at actually doing it than if they just don't really know what it is. So the first half of the book goes into kind of the 5 imbalances that I see most commonly, which is being stuck in kind of that fight or flight state, not sleeping well, not having good detoxification and drainage, really lacking the energy to heal, like having your stress turned on, not necessarily getting good blood flow and blood sugar balance, and then really kind of making sure that your immune system is working with you and not against you, and inflammation is calm. And then the second part gets very specific with the actual remedies, exactly how to use them. So to your point, where do I start? Well, if you don't know if you like oils, go to Whole Foods and just smell the ones that you like and buy whatever smells good to you and see if you actually use it. If you want to get specific about the ones that are actually going to return your systems to balance, to the right frequency, then essential oils to boost the brain and heal the body would probably be a good choice. And it's available for pre-order, actually, on Amazon.
Oh, yay.
I know you can see the cover. The cover was an interesting battle. It's I was trying
Do
to.
you have it? Do you have the book with you?
It's not ready. You know, with COVID, all of the U.S. printers shut down, so they're actually
Okay.
printing it in China. But I can describe it. I used wildflowers in the shape of a brain, so that it kind of says like nature, science, and magic.
Love it.
Yeah.
That's
Thank you.
beautiful. Yes, oils are, and I like how you just said, go out and just smell some, see what you
Yeah.
like. Just do some exploring, be a little adventurous with it.
Well, it's like before you buy the Peloton, maybe make sure you like to, do the stationary bike. Like you don't need to jump into the deep end. You can put your foot in the water and wade in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So tell us more about Vibrant Blue Oils and what's next for your company.
It's really funny. So I have a summit coming up November 9th through the 15th on the parasympathetic state. I really feel like this is the one thing, and it's free. You can use oils. You can, there are a lot of ways to activate your parasympathetic nervous system, even just kind of massaging your ear and around your ear. You can pretend your tongue is a paintbrush and paint the roof of your mouth. There are so many ways to stimulate it. So that's coming out November 9th through the 15th, and it's parasympatheticsummit.com. It's free. You can just watch it as you go. It's got actually the man who wrote the book on the parasympathetic state, this man, Stephen Porges, he wrote the polyvagal theory. He's going to be speaking. It's David Perlmutter, who talks a lot about stress, Kiran Krishnan, who is the gut genius. And actually, one of the things I really aspire to do is to make really complicated topics really accessible. He does the best job I've ever seen of really explaining the gut-brain axis and, how you want to why probiotics are helpful and how activating the vagus nerve in combination with probiotics. It's kind of to your point, the more high vibe things you can do, eating high vibe foods, thinking high vibe thoughts, spending time in high vibe nature, like it's additive and cumulative. So the more you can layer on, the better you're going to feel and the faster you're going to heal.
Love that. Well, and I don't think necessarily in this day and age there's been a focus on all these kind of alternative ways of healing, although I think that's really starting to change. And so I think that more than ever, this information is so valuable because it really does give us those alternatives where a lot of times we've kind of gone through the system and things haven't worked. And so, yeah, I love that you're bringing this forward and helping people to really understand, hey, if you've been through the system and it's not working, it's okay to do some exploration. It's okay to check some things out.
Well, I think the system, the way I look at it, like I know a lot of people that would see me, they've been on antidepressants or anti-anxiety meds forever. And I'm like, so are you better? No, it's just managing the symptoms. It's like you're, kind of out in the water, treading water. You're not drowning, but you're not on the shore. I don't see pharmaceutical drugs actually fixing people. And so you have to look at what are the imbalances that are in place that are keeping them from feeling healthy. And often it is, toxins in the system that aren't leaving the body. So that's really low hanging fruit, and that correlates with sleep and with stress, because if you're not sleeping and you're in chronic stress, your body doesn't let go of those toxins. And it, tries to keep them out of the organs and the blood, so it stores them in fat. So then you gain weight. And, the toxins are circulating and the immune system is responding to it. So then you have inflammation, which presents as fatigue or brain fog or all these symptoms. Basically, at the root of most things that are going on, it's either stress, some kind of trauma, and that could be physical trauma, toxicity, and that's really, and poor sleep, and that's what gets into everything else. So if you can nip those things in the bud, suddenly the symptoms disappear.
Yeah, and I like that you're really sharing, getting down to the basics of really helping people to understand, how this is going on in our system and then how to address it. And I know for myself, I'm a visual learner visual and kinesthetic. So one of the things that I really like is when I see pictures, that are being shared with the information that's being addressed, because then I can associate that.
Oh, you're going to love this book then. Yes. That's kind of the goal, is to really hit it on all sides. And then actually I'm doing, we have a book page that will be live, I think next week, boostthebrainbook.com. And if you buy the book on Amazon and then go back to it, we have like a mini course where, I do a lot of video and walk people through, because that's one thing, and I think there's really a lot of anxiety about doing it wrong. And so I really want people to know you really can't do it wrong, But for example, our most popular blend is the parasympathetic blend that stimulates the vagus nerve. So there was some interesting research in 2012. A New York neuroscientist named Kevin Tracy, started recognizing that when the vagus nerve, especially right here, was stimulated, it helped epilepsy and depression and all these things. And so they started inserting like a pacemaker-like device. It's 2 surgeries, one cut here, one cut here. They thread the wire and it electrically stimulates the vagus nerve to activate the parasympathetic response. It's been approved by the FDA for epilepsy and depression, but it requires a surgery. It's got a battery. It might run out. So an easier way to actually stimulate that nerve is just to put a little blend. You can feel right behind your earlobe where your earring might be on that bone. That's your mastoid bone. Super simple, and oils can be used for acupuncture. It's a pretty popular acupuncture point too, but it's just, you're constantly like rebooting your body. Like I have friends that do 50 push-ups a day. I tried that. I didn't comply with it, but I seem to comply with this.
Yeah. The 50 push-ups is kind of pushing it, if you ask me.
It's kind of like January 1st where you're so ambitious,
right?
And then you just kind of lose steam. Yeah, I couldn't sustain that one, but this one feels manageable and sustainable.
Yeah,
so
I think
cool.
I can adapt to that one.
Yeah, that's so cool, because I when I was a kid in 3rd grade, I fainted and I went into convulsions, and they later did brain scans and brain waves and determined they said I had a form of epilepsy. And so for years I was dealing with migraine headaches, and they had me on various different, migraine medications, and so years later, eventually when I got into essential oils, I started to understand more about that. But I like what you're saying about, with the vagus nerve and stuff like that, with the parasympathetic, with your vibrant blue oils. Now, how can we get your vibrant blue oils?
I can give you a link to add to the show notes where they can get a free parasympathetic toolkit and just get more information about this. And then it has a good offer for that. But Vibrant Blue Oils, thank you for sharing that. And if, anything I'm saying provokes any questions, they can just email me at info@vibrantblueoils. We try to get back to people really quickly. And I've got, my background is journalism, so I write a blog a week. So I've got like 9 years of blogs on the site. You can usually search for any random topic and find what you're looking for.
And all this is available at vibrantblueoils.com?
Yes.
Lovely. And now what's the link that I want to give our audience?
Well, you know what? Boostthebrainbook.com. It won't be live until probably November 1st. We're still working on it.
Okay. All right. Well, so we've said that for our podcast members too, so they can hear, Boost the Brain Book. And then of course I just put it up here on the screen. I'll put it up as well, so our audience members can see it. There we go. Is that correct?
Yes, that is. Thank you.
Perfect. So we can either reach her at vibrantblueoils.com, and her book will be available with this link that she's talking about, boostthebrainbook.com. Wonderful. Well, thank you, Jodi. It's just been an amazing experience with you. We love all the information. Can't wait to hear more about it. And we'll have to have you back on when the book actually comes out. And
I would love that. Oh, you can put the other free link is the Parasympathetic Summit.com.
So spell that for me.
Parasympathetic Summit.com. And that's free online the 9th through the 15th. And if they only listen to one interview, listen to Kieran Krishnan. He's so good.
So you heard that, everyone. www.parasympatheticsummit.com. There's going to be some amazing information shared by our guest here today, Jodi. And definitely say your whole name because everybody will want to hear that.
So my maiden name is Jodi Sternoff, and there's one other Jodi Sternoff. My cousin married a girl named Jodi. My married name is Jodi Cohen, which I usually go by, but there are probably 20,000 Jodi Cohens. So I just, to differentiate my, it's like, did you ever see The Way We Were? And he's the only David Z. Cohen in the book.
Yep.
Why? Because he's the only David Z. Cohen in the book. It differentiates me.
Well, I love that. I love that differentiates you. So, Pam, go ahead and share with our audience members how they can reach and get a hold of us.
Of course, you can find us on the web at thehighvibenation.com and on Facebook at The High Vibe Nation, and also on Instagram at The High Vibe Nation.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Jodi. It's been such a pleasure having you on the show today.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. So we are here live on Facebook, Instagram. What else, Pam? The YouTube, Facebook Live, all of it on Monday evenings at 5:00 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, on Wednesdays at 5:00 Pacific Standard Time, and that's going to be changing very soon as we change the clocks back. We'll stay at the same time since I'm in Arizona, so I'll stay at 5:00 and everybody else will go back an hour. So until then, you have an amazing rest of the evening.
Thank you, everyone.
From everybody here at the High Vibe Nation, we want to say thank you for choosing to raise your vibration. And of course, please like, share, and subscribe. If you need to find us on the web, check us out at www.thehighvibenation.com. Looking forward to seeing you on the next episode, and keep high vibing.